Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into the light behind the legend. We're going to peel back the tabloid headlines, look past all the magic, and reveal the relentless, honestly unglamorous work ethic of a true master. You know, when we think of Michael Jackson, we usually jump straight to the spectacle, right? We think of the unprecedented fame. But today, we're looking strictly at the documented reality of his craft. We're going to explore how a working-class kid from Indiana actually built the most famous silhouette in modern history. Let's get into it. So, what hides behind the most famous silhouette in modern history? It's fascinating because the bigger a legend grows, the white socks, the fedora, the single-sequined glove, the more it actually hides the documented reality of how that greatness was engineered in the first place. Fame has this strange habit of turning a complex human being into a simple symbol or a shorthand. And when that happens, we start to assume their achievements just sort of magically arrived out of thin air. But, as you'll see, the truth is always so much more demanding than that. And that brings us perfectly to our core theme today, the stark contrast between the effortless illusion the public saw and the grueling thousands of hours of practice that actually made it possible. Jackson didn't just start at the top. He started in a small, crowded house in Gary, Indiana, under the strict, industrial discipline of a father who operated cranes at a steel mill. That working-class standard? That set his baseline. While the legend feeds us a story of pure, natural talent and effortless glides across a stage, the documented reality shows us a relentless student. It shows us a man who painstakingly studied the footwork of James Brown and Fred Astaire frame by frame. We're talking about a sophisticated businessman and a very, very quiet philanthropist. The absolutely crucial point here is that the effortlessness was the achievement itself, not the starting point. Think about the 1983 Motown 25 broadcast. Tens of millions of people tuned in and watched Jackson debut the moonwalk. To the entire world, it looked like this sudden, gravity-defying miracle. I mean, the very next day, Fred Astaire himself called Jackson to praise the performance. But even after shocking the globe and getting a blessing from his ultimate hero, what did Jackson do? He walked off stage cataloging his own minor imperfections. He was genuinely upset over a tiny detail in a spin that literally no one else noticed, because his internal standard was just that incredibly high. The world saw triumph, he saw a rough draft. All right, let's move into section 1, the obsessive musical craftsman and how he went about building masterpieces. Now, this might genuinely shock you, but one of the greatest pop composers of the 20th century could not read or write standard musical notation. No way, right? Instead, he used this incredibly unique internal to external process. Jackson composed with his voice. He would hold the entire architecture of a complex arrangement in his head, the bass, the chords, the melody, and then he'd just pull out a tape recorder. He would beatbox the rhythm, sing the bass line, and vocalize every single harmony layer by layer. And it is absolutely wild to picture this. He famously demonstrated this exact process under oath in a federal courtroom, beatboxing to a judge to show exactly how he wrote his songs, because he physically vocalized the rhythm from the very beginning. That deep groove you feel in his tracks, that was baked in at the very moment of creation. When he took those vocal demos into the studio with masters like producer Quincy Jones and engineer Bruce Swadian, the goal was never just to make a hit. The vision for Thriller was a deliberate, heavily funded campaign to completely shatter the barriers between black and white radio formats. This wasn't lightning striking by accident, guys. It was an outrageous goal pursued with obsessive execution. Take the song Beat It, for example. They brought in Eddie Van Halen for the guitar solo, but they carefully calibrated it so it wouldn't be too heavy for R&B stations. They were intentionally building a bridge to fuse audiences together. On top of that, Jackson insisted his music videos be treated with the massive budgets and narrative ambition of cinematic short films, which fundamentally changed the industry standard forever. Okay, let's shift gears to section 2, engineering the impossible and refusing limits. I want you to consider this massive number for a second, 5,255,452. This isn't an album sales figure, and it's definitely not a royalty check. This is actual U.S. patent number 5,255,452. It was granted to Michael Jackson and his costume designers. That's right, the king of pop was quite literally a documented, patent-holding inventor. So what was that patent actually for? Well, in the Smooth Criminal short film, Jackson performs this mind-bending move where he leans forward at an impossible 45-degree angle. On film, they used hidden cables to pull it off. But Jackson wasn't satisfied with just a camera trick. He wanted to do it live, on stage, right in front of a screaming arena crowd. Instead of just accepting that it was physically impossible, he shifted hats from entertainer to mechanical engineer. He and his team literally invented a system where a slot in the heel of his shoes would lock into pegs that rose up from the stage floor, anchoring him so he could defy gravity for real. For him, the impossible wasn't a hard limit. It was just a specification he hadn't engineered yet.
Moving right along to Section 3, the shrewd business owner and owning the value.
Back in 1985, after taking some direct advice from his friend Paul McCartney about the immense power of music publishing, this young artist boldly dropped a staggering $47.5 million to acquire the ATV music catalog. At the time, the industry mostly saw Jackson as just this eccentric entertainer, a pop kid. They vastly underestimated his grasp of cold, hard economics. And this move just brilliantly illustrates his deeper genius. He understood that the durable power in music isn't just in getting up on stage and performing, it's in owning the underlying intellectual property. By purchasing the publishing rights to around 250 Beatles songs plus thousands of others, he basically bought a perpetual toll booth. Think about it. Every single time one of those songs is played, covered, or licensed for a commercial, the owner gets paid. Jackson grasped the critical difference between earning an income and owning an asset, and he executed one of the most lucrative and defining business moves in entertainment history, way before owning your masters became mainstream advice for artists. Finally, we arrive at Section 4, the quiet philanthropist and the unseen generosity. He absolutely didn't just write checks to look good for the cameras. Now, yes, he did co-write We Are the World in 1985, directly applying his specific, hard-won songwriting craft to raise massive funds for famine relief in Africa. But so much of his giving was highly operational and totally under the radar. Through his Heal the World Foundation, which he started in 1992, he airlifted dozens of tons of supplies to war-torn Sarajevo. And even more tellingly, he secretly funded a child's liver transplant, and he routinely funneled massive portions of his tour revenues directly into local charities in the cities he was playing in. And he often did this without seeking a single press release or asking for a pat on the back. Which brings us to the number 39. That number actually represents the Guinness World Record for the most charities supported by a pop star. His philanthropy was so incredibly vast and so deeply sustained across his adult life that it led to multiple nominations for the Nobel Peace Prize. It's crazy because while the media was focusing so intensely on the spectacle and the controversy, Jackson was quietly operating as one of the largest individual forces for humanitarian aid in the entire entertainment world. So what should you really take away from all this? It's that true excellence and deep generosity absolutely do not require an audience. It is so easy in today's world to collapse the distinction between doing good and just being seen doing good, right? But Jackson gave millions of dollars and helped countless individuals, completely anonymously. The quiet, unglamorous work, the hours of beatboxing into a handheld tape recorder, the intense mechanical engineering of a stage shoe, the anonymous funding of a hospital bill, that stuff is always way more interesting and infinitely more impactful than just the famous silhouette. I want to leave you with this final thought to apply to your own life. Today, we've seen that greatness isn't bestowed by magic, it's painstakingly built. And we've seen that the deepest form of charity isn't always writing a check. Sometimes, like co-writing We Are the World, it's applying the very craft that made you successful to help someone else. So my question for you is, how can you utilize your own unique mastery to make a genuine impact today? Think about it. Thanks so much for watching this explainer, and I'll see you all next time.